My name is Alexis Sims, and I'm with the Henrico County Family and Educator Resource Center. I'm the coordinator for the Resource Center. And tonight we had the pleasure of hosting Too Smart to Start, as well as MAD and Henrico Area Mental Health. So we have Miss Cristi Cousins, who is here from MAD VA, and we have Mr. Steve Hickson from Henrico Mental Health. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Cousins to just give us an overview of just kind of why she's here to support us tonight, as well as a little bit more about how our discussion will go and what we're really trying to hit on for the evening.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Cristi Cousins. I'm the program specialist for Mothers Against Drunk Driving in Virginia, and a lot of people say, "Oh, what's MAD Mothers Against Drunk Driving got to do with underage drinking?" And our mission is to stop drunk and drug driving and assist victims, but it's also to prevent underage drinking. So tonight I am working from MAD has some great resources. They have a handbook called "Talking to Your Middle Schooler About Alcohol." A handbook called Talking to Your High Schooler About Alcohol. Those are free, available free on our website for download. So if you hear a little bit of stuff you're interested in, you can get all that information for free. And I'm just glad to be here to join Steve Hickson, who is a rock star as far as all of us in Virginia are concerned about underage drinking prevention, and he has a wealth of knowledge. So I'll turn it over to Steve to talk.
Good evening. My name is Steve Hickson. I work with Henrico Area Mental Health Prevention Services. We actually serve Charles City, New Kent, and Henrico County. And one of our campaigns in prevention is to reduce and prevent underage drinking. So we have some initiatives that we do specifically in partnership with MAD, Cristi Cousins, Too Smart to Start, as well, and the schools as well too, to reduce and prevent underage drinking. Just as a resource for parents particularly, one, you can go to our prevention website, henricoprevention.org, and you'll see our underage drinking campaign on there, and you'll see some of the things that we have as far as resources. If you click on the resource page when you go there, there's a plethora of resources there. In addition to that, we are continuously throughout the year, pre-pandemic, going in the community and providing some resources as well as various events. And I guess I'll stop there and field any kind of specific questions you have. But I will say our number to Henrico Area Mental Health for any parent that may suspect their child has an alcohol problem is area code 804-727-8515. 804-727-8515. And we do have walk-in hours as well too. So you can call and make an appointment, or you can just walk in. And we have, again, a lot of resources available for you as a parent.
Thank you, Mr. Hickson. And Terrell, did you want to give an introduction as well?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Terrell Pollard. I'm the chair of Henrico Too Smart to Start Coalition. We are a organization, a nonprofit of community stakeholders. So that means Henrico Mental Health, MAD, Henrico County Public Schools, the police, parents, students. And so if you are a member of the community, we invite you to get a part of the conversation. We're focused on youth substance use prevention. And one of the reasons, one of our purposes is to make sure these conversations are being had. And we find that as the older youth get, the less parents talk to them about using substances. And so if a youth uses substance at 14, 15, 16, as opposed to the legal age 21, and I would even push 25, using a substance is more likely to become instead of it being social, as some intend for it to be, is more of a coping mechanism. And so it's just very dangerous for that to be the case. And so Too Smart to Start is, as much as possible, try to get as much information out there. So we try to have evening conversations when a little more people can access it. So please spread the word of information you learn here. There are some questions that Alexis is going to read that were created by our youth leadership team, where they were asked to do so with their parents. And hopefully those questions will jog some thoughts of yours. And if you have questions, either put them in the chat or at the appropriate time when Alexis says so, take yourself off mute and ask them. And thanks. I'm Terrell.
All right, thank you, Terrell. So yes, as we're gonna go through, I will play the part as our youth ambassador for the evening, since homework had to take precedence for tonight. But we're gonna go through some of these questions that we'll get some answers to as we're going through these. If you have any questions that you want to go ahead and throw into the chat, please feel free. And then once I stop the recording, then if you have some things that you want to come off mute, have a discussion, answer some questions, then you all are welcome to. All right, so the first question that we have from our youth leaders and their parents is, what age is best to begin speaking to your youth about underage drinking?
I'm going to jump in and then let the professionals weigh in when I'm done. So MAD's middle school book is geared towards kids ages 11 to 14. From research, we know that kids are being exposed to alcohol at the ages of 11 to 14 and even earlier. They may not be drinking, but they're developing their ideas about it. So they recommend that you start talking to kids about alcohol. And we have some questions, and I'm just going to throw some of these out there, and they may have some other ideas. How do you think drinking helps or hurts the body? You could just open up with that question. You could say, how do you think drinking affects the choices that some young people make in their lives? How do you think drinking affects people under the age of 21? What have you heard about drinking? Do you guys have any other suggestions for about starting that conversation, or what age to start it at?
I can speak to that. I think whatever age you start at is a good age, better at some age than none. But I would say if your child is school age, that would be a good opportunity. And the reason I say that is because your child could be sitting at home watching a commercial or watching the show, and the commercial come on about alcohol. That's an opportunity. Doesn't matter the age, the language you use, how quick, how short that conversation may be the contextual things that decide on the conversation. So it doesn't have to be an elongated conversation about this is your body and this is what it does, because the child may not understand that. But you can talk about, well, why do you think that commercial, blah, blah, blah. And you can get them at an early age starting to think about it and understanding how you feel about that. So when they get older, it's not the first time ever be discussed with them. So that would be my response to that.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so the next question that we have is it okay to allow my child to taste alcohol as long as they know not to do it without me?
So MAD commissioned a study, and they worked with Dr. Robert Teresi out of Pennsylvania. And one of the things they found is that, people believe that they can teach their kids how to drink responsibly. But one of the things they found is that kids who are allowed to drink alcohol in the home drink more and more often outside of the home. And they thought maybe it was that perceived permission that they felt they were getting at home. Steve, do you have an opinion on that?
I kind of equate it to why it's not a good idea for parents to try to teach their kids to drive. Um, I think trying to teach your kids something like that. I do believe that there are cultures, and understand there are cultures that alcohol, where the kids participate with the adults in certain cultures, is part of a special occasion. And I don't think we're talking about that here. I think we're talking about a parent trying to teach their kid to drink in the most appropriate way. The problem with that comes when you're outside the parents. Other people are trying to teach your child to drink in an appropriate way. And it might not be your parents' way. You get into social pressures that way. So I think for parents particularly, one, under the age of 21, it's illegal. We'll come back to that. I think two, as parents, it's hard for us to teach our kids around those things, especially drinking alcohol. I think we're better served trying to teach them to avoid situations that put you in a position to decide whether I want to drink or not and be pressured. To me, that's more of an opportunity and times well spent to, educating your children more about, hey, how can you avoid these situations? If you're at a party and you don't feel like you want to drink, then have something in your hand, a glass of water, something, so that, a soda, so people won't know, but you'll always have something in your hand so you can't occupy it with something else. I mean, those are better tools of, I think, equipping young people with around the issue of alcohol.
Yeah, thank you. Next question we have in is, how often should I discuss underage drinking with my teenager or young adult?
I think, like Steve said, that it's a great to bring it up whenever it comes up, just to weave it into that conversation. You know, a lot of parents, we hear a lot of parents who say, we go to church, we teach our children to have good morals, but they never talk about alcohol. And I think there's an assumption, because we're good people and maybe for the parents don't drink, that those kids are getting that messaging. But I think with Steve's idea of talking about that messaging when you see it on TV, when a situation comes up in the community, that's a so constantly. Is that what you're saying, Steve?
Yeah, I would reiterate that any learnable moment, teachable moments that naturally arise. So kids are on guard when you just decide, well, we want to have a conversation. They're on guard. But if something comes up, or better, if they bring it up because of something, that's a great opportunity as a parent to walk in that door and engage them in that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads us into our next question of, should I discourage my youth from drinking, from giving them facts, or simply threatening them with punishment?
Well, Steve, I'm looking forward to hear what you think about this, because in Matt's book, what they're saying is that parents have the power to reduce their teens' drinking, and that the way that they do that is to have conversations about it and to initiate consequences. Have a family rule, no drinking under the age of 21, and initiate consequences for breaking that rule. What do you think?
I agree. I think that the consequences need to be logical consequences and associated with that, not just something over here that doesn't relate to the drinking, because then you didn't learn anything, because it should be a lesson. So consequences from a discipline standpoint, not a punitive standpoint in terms of punishment, but a discipline. You're trying to teach. Discipline means to teach. Punishment involves some moral judgment in that sense. I think also, again, when any opportunity arises, I think that's the best opportunity to talk with young people. But there's another piece that we haven't discussed, and that's, if I'm a parent, my own drinking and what I model. Because kids are going to pick up on that more than anything. If I'm stressed out, and the first thing I do when I'm stressed out is take a drink, guess what? I'm modeling when you get stressed, drink to calm yourself down. If I get anxious about something and I start drinking, guess what I'm modeling? So I think before even having the conversation with your kids, I think as parents, we need to take a look at our own habits and what we model or do not model. What's that saying? Kids do as you do, not as you say. And I think the modeling of that makes a difference. I'm not saying you don't have to drink, but when do you drink? What is your drinking for? Is it social? Is it because I'm stressed? Somebody made me mad? Do I drink and then get behind the wheel? Because then if you're having a conversation with the kids, the values aren't aligning themselves. And kids can see right through that, especially as they get older.
And I wanted to hop in. Go ahead.
They found that when they interviewed parents about talking to their teens about alcohol, one of the reasons parents did not have those conversations with their kids is because they didn't want their kids throwing their drinking back in their face. Parents were afraid to have those conversations.
Wow. I was going to point out something similar. Not that similar, but one of the reasons that we became aware of that parents don't have that conversation with their youth, because they're assuming that their friends have a little more say so, a little more influence, and so a lot of studies show that parents are neck and neck, if not more, substantially more influential with whether their youth drinks or not. But also, I like what Steve said about the consequences making sense. It doesn't have to be this standalone thing. It can go in, it can fit right in there with curfew, uh, driving, if you want this level of trust, it can be baked in with expectations for this level of trust. You have to get some autonomy as you get older. As long as you are sticking to these rules, then you're going to have that same level of autonomy. And maybe we dial that back. I did want to say that not so much that they have to be with them all the time, but it's shown that if parents are aware of who their youth are with and where they're going, that helps them not use substances, because that kind of bakes in that conversation too. Who you're with and where you're going, you'll be being aware of that. You'll be more aware of the activities that are going to go on.
Can I add something, Alexis? The converse of that is, if you don't have the conversation at any point in time, the implied message could be, it's not that big of an issue. So even if you mess up in the conversation, so to speak, you're conveying to the young person that it's an important issue. It's sort of like, Alexis, you're an educator, you know, if a parent doesn't talk about how your day went in school, then kids feel like, well, nobody asked me, it must not be that important. And so a young person will take away from the fact that, okay, I've never had this conversation, must not be that big of an issue. So I think that's the converse of not having the conversation in terms of what may occur with the young person. In their mind, the interpretation may be that it's not a big issue at all, whether I drink or not.
That's a good point.
So, if a parent suspects that their child might be drinking and are interested in starting this conversation, then what would be some, what should they do if they think that their child is already drinking?
Now you get into resources, and there are lots of resources out there. Actually, there's a national campaign called Talk, They Hear You. And if you just put in the words Talk, They Hear You, a whole bunch of resources are available for parents. It's a national campaign to reduce underage drinking, and the resources are specifically designed for parents. So that's a excellent resource for parents to go to. I know Cristi's going to talk about some sources that MAD have. If you feel like it's an alcohol problem, or you want to feel like, as a parent, you weigh that decision, again, Henrico Mental Health is your community local mental health. We have resources available there as well. You can go to our website. There are resources available on there as well. I gave that before, henricoprevention.org. So I would say there's a lot of resources out there for parents before they ever step outside the house. But if they feel like they need to, then Henrico Area Mental Health would be one of the resources I would suggest parents to come to. You have nothing to lose by getting an assessment if it's an alcohol problem, because experimentation and alcohol being a problem, you start looking at a whole lot of things. It is affecting the child's ability to go to school, have relationships, satisfying relationships, a whole lot of things. And, it may or may not, I don't know. But I think as a parent, just know Henrico Area Mental Health is available. There are sites you can go to that give you on-site resources that you can download, you can use, that are national. So if you go to Talk, They Listen. That's one of the, I found, the best sites to go to when you talk about resources specifically designed for parents or caregivers. It's not just parents that have custodial care of kids.
And Talk They Listen, that's a great resource. I suggested the MAD one because I work for MAD, but they all basically say the same thing. They all say, have a relationship with your kids, have these conversations with your kids, and they give suggestions on how to. And I heard that Talk They Listen, the SAMHSA website, also has an app that parents can download on their phone.
Yep.
And if you're into that. So yeah, they're all great resources. And I found some, I found some how to know if your teen has a drinking problem questions. You guys, can I share these? And maybe we'll prompt some parents to, maybe they'll think, oh, I did notice this. It says, is alcohol missing in your home? Have you found it in your teen's backpack, car, or room? Have they lost interest in former hobbies or their appearance? Are they struggling with school or grades or skipping school? Are they hanging out with different kids, or are they secretive? Are they acting drunk? Are they stumbling, slurred speech, dull eyes? To us, those things are obvious, but the parents who don't drink, they might not know what that means. Are they using breath mints and mouthwash? Have they been borrowing more money or needing more money? And have they been aggressive or rebellious? Any feedback on that, you guys?
I will add that is actually the next question of what are some of the signs. So
oh, there we go. Yep.
There you go.
Feeding into that.
Now, I think also as a parent, though, some of those signs could just be typical teenage behavior. Mm-hmm. So it's a fine line in understanding that, because oftentimes teenagers don't necessarily, or parents don't necessarily know the typical signs of teenagers. And then in substance use, prevention particularly, that's one of the things that we always talk about, is the fact that, what is typical behavior for teenagers, and what is behavior that may make you think as a parent, there's some more looking into this I need to do. Because just because a teenager is, sleeping for a long time doesn't mean they're using drugs. Just because teenagers can sleep for 12, 13 hours, that'd be normal. Just because a teenager is, especially when they get older, secretive, supposedly. That could be about body image or a whole lot of other things. So I think as a parent, again, looking for some of those obvious signs first and foremost. If you see those, it's obvious. And then just, having a conversation with your child and see what they're sharing.
Great, thank you. And then the last question that we had from our youth and parents was, what's the youngest you've heard of a child having a drinking problem?
All right, I looked this up online, you guys. I did a search. It was a story from 2011. A 3-year-old in Britain was considered the youngest alcoholic, and they said he would have had to have been given alcohol repeatedly for over at least 6 months to develop the his dependence on alcohol they exhibited. So that's, unusual, obviously. But I would think, I'm just going to guess. I've heard of many kids who started drinking at 11. I don't know that they had alcohol problems at 11. What have you guys heard?
I've heard kids started drinking before that, and I don't know what the research shows. What was typical. I know our Pride survey showed. I think 14 was the age at which most kids reported involvement with some substance. And so, from our locality standpoint, to me, that would be the point in which I would really want to focus on. But as far as the youngest, I've heard of kids drinking beforehand, just in terms of some work I did with social services and child protective services was involved, and that's why they were involved. So, but that 3-year-old, that's interesting.
Wow.
That was from 2011.
I guess that's not Similac with or without iron, huh? That's just Similac with something else in it. I can't.
I'll say
it's child abuse is what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say, like, I've heard things like 10, 11. Usually, it's some other issues going on when they're that young. And then, kind of commonplace. I'm not sure how common, but I've heard multiple people say they tasted alcohol at like 5. Like they were at a wedding or some type of celebration. But I'm not sure that it turned out to be a problem later on. But we know that youth use substances the most after school on the weekends. One of the reasons for this call is because Christmas break is coming up. And so just want to kind of put this back on the forefront of everyone's mind that when they are outside of the presence of adults, that's when substance use kind of goes up. So I guess that would be around 14. Because I studied, like Steve said, for Henrico, we put all studies together. And I can't really remember, but alcohol wasn't, I think it was actually 14 for alcohol when people first started using.
I will say this, Henrico Citizen last week posted driving accidents and alcohol related. And for teens particularly, I think, well, marijuana has surpassed alcohol as the number one distracted driving for teens. Mm-hmm. Cell phones being right up there as well too. Alcohol was pretty high as well, still on that list, and it's the most successful drug still for kids because it's right there in the home. I ain't got to go out too far. I can just go to your house or my house. So the access, I think, is part of what a lot of our campaigns in prevention we try to share with parents about limiting access and ways to go about doing that. Because if you're not home, especially if you're a teen and you have alcohol in the house, if you did a poll, how many parents have their alcohol locked up? Probably none, or a very small minority. And so access is available. So I think part of what we try to focus on a lot is campaigns around reducing access or having some barriers there, whether that barrier be, someone at home, your kids are involved in other activities, so they're not at home. Because I think, and Cristi, you can correct me on this, I think it was like 40% of alcohol that minors get is in the home. It's from the home or someone else's home. Mm-hmm. So if I know your parents aren't home and we can go to your house, that becomes an access point.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the points I'd like to make too is a lot of parents think, oh, it's just a little alcohol. I drank when I was young. But they have no idea of the genetic makeup of their kid, how it could cause problems for them further down the road. Just because it didn't cause problems for me as your mother doesn't mean that you don't have that gene, that the alcohol is going to get a hold of you and lead you down that road of, I can't tell you how many people who have become addicted to opiates started with alcohol or marijuana, that we should consider those not harmless but gateway drugs still. So I like to encourage parents to think of it that way.
And last thing I'll say, just kind of going back to something that was said earlier, there were a lot of car crashes, drunk driving crashes, things like that in Henrico amongst youth, teenagers, as a result of parents kind of hosting parties or letting youth drink under their supervision. So just that, thankfully, it's not that big of an issue. It was maybe like 10 years ago, we had a lot of drunk driving accidents by teens in the news. And then you come to find out that they were being provided alcohol, or they were drinking under the supervision of teachers or parents. So just that an adult kind of signing off on them drinking alcohol, I think, can sometimes give some false confidence, and they maybe go overboard.
Well, thank you all. So that concludes the questions that we have from our youth leaders and parents. So I will stop the recording here. Thank you to the youth leaders and parents that participated in submitting questions.